Good morning to all of you. So judging by that, I think we have got some Spanish people and some English people. I hope, unfortunately, I've been trying to improve my Spanish, but it's nowhere near to be able to speak to you, so I apologize. And just a show of hands, who of you can understand English? Wow, that is awesome. So then I feel much more comfortable. I'm going to try and speak slowly so that my accent comes across. As the gentleman said, I'm originally from South Africa, Johannesburg, and moved to the United States 20 years ago, and that's where I live today with my family and a company that we have there. It's a great honor and privilege for me to be here with you. I heard some of the talks yesterday, and they truly are inspiring. And what I'm here to do today is to share with you my personal journey. Every one of us is on a personal journey with Jesus. And where we are on a scale of 1 to 10, some are a 3, some are a 5, some are a 7, some are a 10. But we're all on a journey. And I want to share with you my journey, and maybe you can relate to my journey, on your journey. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how God has used that transformation of mine to change our company. And I'll share that with you. I'm here primarily because of association with Schoenstatt through many different God incidences, if you like. And the first of them is the folks at Synchro down in Brazil. I did a talk several years ago, and Alejandro and Ricardo were there and heard some of what we had to say. And Mayuka got involved. She is down, now works for Synchro, who is a very personal friend of mine. So it's amazing how God puts things and people together. Another really interesting thing was our sales manager. His sister lives in Denver, Colorado. Well, his wife and him live in Colorado, and her sister is the head of Schoenstatt in Germany, which is Sister Aleja. And that is, so it's one of my employees is family with the head of Schoenstatt. So talk about a God incident. I don't know how else that would work, but that's an amazing coincidence. But I don't think it's a coincidence. And because of that, Kelly, who's head of his way at work, went to Germany and met with her. And so there's a very intimate connection with Schoenstatt and what we're doing. So a little bit of my story. What I'm trying to show you today is how God has touched my heart, but how He used that touching of my heart to transform our business and to put things in place that truly touch people's hearts with God in mind. And the process, God is love. And how does one take love and put it into a company? It's very difficult. When you say to your employees that on a third shift working as welding or machine operators that you love them, they're like, love me? Mm-mm. It's more about caring. So what you're going to hear today is about caring in the workplace. How do we care for people? And how do we create processes in place that actually institutionalize caring for human beings in a way that honors God? And so that's what I'll share with you. What's a little bit interesting for me, or what's interesting about my story, is for 20 years I ran our business as many people in the secular world, CEOs, would run it, and that's all about money. I ran the business like that. And then God touched my heart. And there's a line in the sand where things changed. And you'll see what happened in our company. Mother Teresa, she says a beautiful thing. She says, we can do no great things, only small things with great love. So my talk today is not about great things. It's just a lot of little things that I've tried to do with great love. But she also says that we're just pencils in God's hands. And in my case, I'm a broken pencil. Many things have happened in my life that have humbled me, and that God is using that brokenness to draw a straight line. And only God can use our brokenness to draw straight lines. And maybe that can apply to some of what happens in your lives. So I just want to briefly go through our company's history. My dad started our business in 1959. You can see there's a picture over there. That is Cape Town. That is Table Mountain. And I spoke to the folks yesterday who took me home that have their bucket list dream is to go to Cape Town. So there's the place. And so a little bit of history there. My dad started our company with $1 and with nothing else than a dream and a belief in God, that God can turn. He was coming from the Second World War in Germany. He was 19 years old. He was escaping the war. And he went to South Africa to start a new life. And God really touched his heart in many different ways. He literally started our company in a garage, which is down here. You can see that's a garage there. And that was the first company vehicle. So you can see a very humble beginning that God used for our company. And so today our company is in the United States. We also have another branch down in Santiago, Chile. And we also have another branch in Peru, which is down in Arequipa. So we have many different organizations. What we do is we make screening equipment for the mines, primarily copper and gold mines all over the world. And so that's the reason we're in those various locations. So what happened is I was born in South Africa, and when my dad had the business, he said, you know, I've got this opportunity in America, and would you like to go to America? Would you like to stay in South Africa? And so, as with many things in life, when God asks us questions, we've got to ask ourselves, well, God, what is your plan for my life? And so I prayed about it, and I said, God, help me understand, do you want me to go to America, or do you want me to stay in South Africa? And so an interesting thing happened. Within a few weeks of me asking God, I stopped at a red light on the road, and a car drove over in front of me from here to you. And the two back doors opened, and two guys jumped out with what looked like a bag with a stick underneath it. I'm like, you know, what is that? And as I drove past them, it was an AK-47 machine gun. And the man emptied his machine gun into my car. And I want to show you just a brief picture of what that looks like. So you can see on the bottom, I don't know which one I should look at, you'll see over there is a small hole. And you think to yourself, that's just a little small hole, what's that? But I want to show you what that small hole was. That's where the bullet came out. So they shot from the other side of the car through there. And you say, well, okay, but let me show you how God spoke to me. The bullet, when I got to the hospital, the bullet went through my front of my shirt and out the side of my shirt through the door. Now I want to ask you, what is the chance of that happening? I know you guys spoke yesterday about a coincidence or a God incidence. Just think about, if any of you are good at maths, do the calculation, what is the probability of putting 20 bullets into a car at 40 miles an hour, and the bullet goes through the shirt but does not hurt you? What is the chance? It's the big guy. The big guy is talking. So I said, after that, I said, God, thank you very much. You have made it very clear to me. I need to leave, but next time, please, no bullets. So I came to United States, and I worked very hard. And I wanted to build a business up. I wanted to show the world and my dad what I could do. So I worked very, very hard. And I forgot about God. And I chased the American dream. And you ask yourself, well, what is the American dream? It's kind of when we go to college in the United States, and maybe in many parts of the world, what do the lecturers teach us? They teach us, what does success look like? Success looks like successful business, family, nice house, nice cars, vacations. That is the good life, right? That's what we learn in college. That's what success means. So the question then is, what does success look like for you? And you know, I went after that dream, and I realized that after that whole dream, I was empty. I had a hole in my heart. And it's kind of like if you can imagine a truck coming past your house, and the little dog, it chases the truck. And then the truck stops, and the little dog goes, what do I do now? It's kind of like me. I was chasing this truck all my life. And suddenly the truck stopped, and I got there, and I said, I can't eat this truck. So what do I do? I felt empty in my heart. And that, I think, is what Schoenstatt is all about. Schoenstatt talks about fulfillment at a deep, deep level with God in the center. God was not part of my life at that point. He was, yes, a little bit, but not real. And so a friend of mine said, why don't you go on a retreat to Atlanta, a silent retreat, and spend some time talking to God. What is it that He's got a plan for your life? So I went on this retreat. And on that retreat, God opened my eyes to a lot of things. And the person giving the retreat said, I want you to ask yourself, what do you worship? I said, oh, of course I worship God. He said, no. Take a circle and tell me where you spend your time and your money, because that is truly who you worship. And so I want to show you what I came up with. This was my picture. And you can see over here, there's a small little slice for God. On Sunday, 1 hour, going to Mass. Okay, God, I got you covered, man. The next thing, family. I traveled a lot. I didn't spend much time with my family, so only a small slice for them. The next one, social responsibility. Okay, I went to church on Sunday, and the first collection I put money, and sometimes even the second collection I put money. And so I thought, you know what, I'm good, right? I give my money to church, I'm good. And while I was thinking about that, I thought, you know, at the end of the day, who I really worship is myself. My own selfishness, my own self-centeredness. And the crazy thing is, the more selfish we become, the more unhappy we become. And that's what I found. So during the retreat, I realized that God had to be not a slice. God had to take a new place in my life. God had to be the center. And that those other pieces were not slices. They were pieces of my life that God had to be the middle of. He had to infiltrate every part of my life. And I ask each of you, if you had to draw that circle, what would your circle look like? What do you worship? Yes, I know all of you sitting here would say, oh, of course, I should worship God. I challenge you, do that exercise for yourself and see where you're spending your time. How are you spending your leisure time? How are you spending your life and your money? And that helps you to understand really what you worship. And so, as I looked at that, I realized I was what I would call a submarine Christian. And what that means, on Sunday, I'm on top. Got my tie on, sitting in the front row, hallelujah, amen, all good. Sunday afternoon, shut the hatch and let's dive. And for the rest of the week, there was no evidence in my life that God was the center of my life. None. So I really was the submarine. So after that retreat, I realized, I said to myself, how do I take this Bible? You know, the Bible's a thick book. It's got a lot of pages in it. How do I summarize that into something that I can understand and implement? And Jesus said something very clearly during that retreat to me. I was led to the scripture where He says to His disciples, He says, it's easy. I'm going to give you 2 things to do that summarize the whole Bible. Love me with all your heart and love your neighbor as I love you. Easy. The whole rest of the Bible is commentary. If we don't get that right, it all doesn't make sense. So I said to myself, okay, if that's what I'm going to do, how do I do that? And I thought to myself, okay, if I go back to Spartanburg, after the retreat, I live on a farm, so it's easy. I don't have any neighbors, so I'm good. Yeah. God tickled my heart, and He said, let me tell you who your real neighbors are. Number one, it's your family. And number two, it's your employees. They are your neighbors, and I want you to love them. It's the first time in my life I ever really realized that God wanted me to care for my employees. Because up until then, I was under the assumption, I pay them, so what are they complaining about? You got your money, I can treat you any way I like, as long as I pay you. And we had a department in our company called Human Resources Department. Human resource. In English, the word resource means something you use. And really, I realized I was using people to get what I wanted. For me, selfishly. I had no idea of what they were there for. There's an old saying, it says, we should not use people to get things. We should use things to love people. And that was a paradigm change for me. How was I going to do that? And so as I looked at how I was going to do that, a lot of things had to change in my life. And this is what I came back with. This is what you call a paradigm shift. For me, it was a change in the way I thought. And I want you just to, what does a paradigm mean? A paradigm, if you look at this FedEx logo, you'll see there, in that logo, there is an arrow. How many of you see the arrow? Okay? Those of you that did not put up your hands, I'm going to show you something. There's an arrow between the E and the X. You see it there? E and X. There's an arrow right here, see? Pointing that way. You see it? Now that you've seen that logo, from today, every time you see a FedEx truck, you're going to look at that arrow first. And I want you to remember when you see that arrow, to think about what does God mean to you? And how do you see Him? And so I want to just share with you how that changed my way of thinking. Because once you see something a certain way, you can never go back. I promise you, you'll never ever be able to look at that logo without seeing the arrow from today onwards. You can't do it. Your eye will just go to it. And that's what I hope, that's what happened to me. Once I understood that God said, love your neighbor, and I understood that the neighbor means my employees, I could never go back. I could never go back. And that's some of the things that happened to me. I want to just run through the list. Number one, yesterday you guys spoke about God owns your company. I travel around the world sharing this story with many CEOs, company owners. And when I speak to them about who owns your company, they say, of course it's me. I got a share certificate. It says, Peter owns 100% of POLYDECK. Don't tell me I don't own it. I said, okay. If you think that you own it, let's ask who gave you the gifts to own it. They said, well, I worked really hard. I built that business. My hand is blood and sweat. I know how to build it. I said, okay. Who gave you the education? Who put you in the family that you were born in? I'm going to share a story with you in a little while about Nicaragua. We as a company go into Nicaragua to do mission work there. What happens if you were born into a family in Nicaragua in a barrio with $0? Would you still be who you are today? Mm-mm. So really, your company is a gift, and it's a gift from God. And if it is a gift from God, what are you going to do with it? With every gift, like there's a parable in the Bible that says, the parable of the talents. When you're given things, what are you going to do with it? So it was a huge, huge thing on my heart. What was I going to do with the gifts that God had given me? The other thing was, when we as Christians, when we truly, Pope John Paul, he said that the moment that you truly become a Christian, it's two moments. Number one, when you own your faith. So it's not your parents' faith, it's not your family's faith, it's your faith, a personal relationship with Jesus. And number two is when you decide to share it. So sharing our faith is important. To be a disciple, you can't keep your mouth shut. You have to share it. And so that's what I realized, was I had to share it. So suddenly my company became a mission field. Those are the people. Do you know in our company, and maybe in many of your companies, over 70% of our employees in the United States don't go to church. 70%. So, where is the mission field? It's in our own backyard. And that's what I realized. I didn't have to go to China to share the gospel of God. I could do it in my own company. Then the third thing, or the last thing that I realized, is about purpose. Mark Twain, a really famous American writer, he said there's two most important days in everyone's life. Number one is the day you're born, and the second one is the day you find out why you were born. And that's purpose. When we find our purpose, everything else starts to make sense. And so my question was, what is the purpose of our company? So when I went back to POLYDECK after that retreat, I pulled my executive team together and I said, guys, what is our purpose? And we spent almost weeks and weeks figuring out what our purpose is. And this is the purpose statement that we came up with. The purpose of our company is to serve our customers and stakeholders with excellence, because that's what we're there for. We're a business. We make things, we sell to customers. And then it's to achieve profit. Every company must make profit, because if you don't make profit, you die. So that was the second thing, to grow profitably. But the third thing was the core. Why do you make money? Is it to make Peter rich? Or is it to care for people, our neighbor, in a way that honors God? And so that was really an important component for us, was to define that. The next thing was, how would we live that out? And you live out a purpose when you talk about values. What are your values? How do you live that out? And so we as a company, again, we sat for weeks figuring this out. This didn't happen in one day. And what we say is, we are a company grounded in the Christian values of humility, honesty, integrity, respect, kindness, and a sense of social responsibility. Our goal is to create eternal value by striving to honor God in all that we do. This is reflected in how we conduct our business and how we care for our employees, who are our greatest asset. That's a pretty bold statement. And we'll talk a little bit later about how a company that doesn't have a statement like that can create one. Because if you truly are a disciple, which our company is and decided to be, you must communicate that. So how do you communicate that? Through statements, your purpose statement, your core values, and your mission statement. And so that's what we did. So the next thing was, when I came back from that retreat, I got my team together, we wrote all this out, but I was afraid. In the United States, if you put a statement out there like that, there's several things that are fears. So I want to go through those fears briefly with you. The first fear is, what will people think? Many of our employees say, you know, religion is not a thing that you do in a company. Religion is a personal thing, and you do that outside the company. This company here is to make equipment for the mines, not to talk about religion. So then what are you going to do with that? So it's a fear. And the devil puts that fear in your heart because he says, I want you to close your mouth. I don't want you to share this. So the second thing is, will I be sued? In the United States, we have many different faiths. Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Scientology, you name it, we got it. We have 300 employees, so you can imagine there's a lot of different people with different faiths in there. What do you do with that? It's scary. The next one is, can I afford it? If I start caring for employees, it's going to cost me money. How do I get return on my investment? It's difficult. And the last one is, will I lose customers? If I say that I'm a Christian company, what happens to customers that are not Christian? How do they handle that? How do I deal with that? It's all scary stuff. And when you're scared like that, you get stuck. So one of the first things that happened is we've got 40 salesmen. And those sales guys said, I tell you what, if you put that statement on your business card, we don't really want to do that because we're afraid. And so you put it on your business card and we'll put it on, we'll have two, one with and one without. And then we'll decide which one. I said, okay, I'll put it on mine first. I deal with Indonesia, is the largest client base that we have, and Indonesia is 90% Muslim. So I put it on my business card, and off to Indonesia I went. And at that point, we had about 10% of the business at this big mine in Indonesia, actually one of the largest in the world. And I took my card and I gave it to the operations manager and I slid it over this way. I didn't turn it over because I was afraid. And so we walked around the mine and looked at things and he said, Peter, I really like your product and blah, blah, blah. And that night we drove back to the hotel and he was in the car with me. And he said, Peter, I read your business card. And I'm like, oh man. Here it comes. And you know, he said to me, I tell you what, I want to tell you how much I respect you. I respect you for putting those values on your card. He says, because they're my values. I believe in honesty. I believe in integrity. I believe in humility. Those are the core values that I have too. And I really respect you for putting those on. And he says, you know what else? He says, I believe we have the same God. Yes, we have different opinions, but I believe that we have the same God. We got to the hotel and he said, I want to take you to my home. And I stayed at his home. And we spent the night talking about family and faith. And it was beautiful because he inspired me. He was sharing things about his faith that inspired me. You know that the average Muslim prays 5 times a day. How many of us pray 5 times a day? So I could learn from him. So we had something in common. The next day we went back up to the mine. He got his whole group of people together. And he said, I tell you what, I've made a decision. We're going to go with POLYDECK as our sole supplier, 100% of our business. And we're going to sign a contract with them for the life of the mine, until the mine dies. Have you ever heard of a contract like that? That is unheard of. In our industry, there is no such thing. But that was signed that day. So I went back to Spartanburg. It was our annual sales manager meeting with all our salesmen in the room. And I took my card and I told them the story. And I said, nah, 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 nah. And they were like, can I get that card too? So it was a journey for us as a company. So I want to show you a short video of what those values mean to our employees.
I think that has helped all of us to become better people, Christians and non-Christians alike, because the Christian core values and the Christians practicing those core values. Of course, the non-Christians see that and they tag along, and they see that it's a positive thing, it's a good thing, it's good values, or it's helped the workplace.
So the next thing we said, okay, how do we put feet under that? How do we create value to our employees? How do we not just talk about values, but how do we live them? And so the first one is, if you're truly going to help people to find God, there's an old saying. It says, I cannot hear what you say until I know that you care. I cannot hear what you say until I know that you care. And you can call this a Christian program, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But until people believe that you authentically care for them unconditionally as human beings, they don't want to hear about your religion. I was sharing with someone this morning. Someone said, you know what? I love Christians. Well, I love Christ, but I don't like your Christians. And that's really, we have to live our faith. And so, how would we live that faith? So we started this team called the Caring Team with a facilitator and people from every department. And these people now, really, their main objective is to use 1.5% of our total revenue. So just think about each of your companies, 1.5% of top line revenue. We put into a fund. And we said, you guys can choose to use these funds in a way that enriches the lives of employees and honors God. That's what this team is there to do. And it's amazing to see the things that they've come up with. And I'm going to share with you in a second here what these guys have done. The first thing they did was they put this little matrix together, and they said, if we're going to spend money, how are we going to define where we spend the money to care for each other? And we said, okay, it's for the employees first. So they decided 60% of total money is going to employees, 30% to the families, and 10% to the community. But then they said, on what dimensions? If you look at a human being, we're made up of different components. You guys shared that yesterday. We're part of the physical, emotional, and spiritual. So we said, how do we do that? So we came up with a whole bunch of programs that I want to share with you. These are some of the initial programs that we shared with our employees. We got home repairs. Many of our employees, their homes are all beat up. The rain is coming in, the back door's falling off. So we said, okay, what we're going to start doing is on Saturday, we're going to ask our employees to come together. We're going to go to your house, and we're going to repair your house for free. I said, okay, see how that works. So we started doing it every Saturday to another employee's home for free. Then we said, okay, the next program we got is a car repair fund. If your car breaks down, we're going to give you a little card, an 800 number. You call that company, they'll come pick up your car, repair the car, bring it back to your home, no charge. And you know what? Not just for you, but for your spouse too. Okay. Let's see. And as time went, I don't have enough time, we have about 20 different programs. And our programs that we chose are very unique to our company, to our culture, to our country. Each of you will have different programs. Abel Cruz is going to speak in a little bit about his company, Qualfon. They've got a whole bunch of different programs, but the essence is helping employees decide for themselves how to spend money in a way that they find meaningful. And so you'll see many different things, sports teams, addiction recovery. Another example, we used to have employees that get addicted to drugs in our company. We do drug tests, and if they found on drugs, we would fire them. But after this retreat that I went on, I believed that we do not have people just in our company, employees or a resource. I believe that each of them has a soul. And if we have souls in our company, if we see our employees as souls, how can you just fire a guy if he's made a bad decision? We need to help him. So we send people now away on addiction recovery. They go to a home for 12 weeks. While they're there, we pay for their salary. We take care of the garden and all the things at home for their families. And then when they come back, we keep their jobs for them. Give them their job back and give them a bonus for completing the course. Isn't that what Jesus would do? So we have to ask ourselves, what would Jesus do if he was the CEO of our company? And these are some of the things that we've decided to do to care for our employees. And the interesting thing is that when you care for people unconditionally, what's the first thing they wind up asking you eventually? Why? Why are you doing all these programs? And the answer really is because God loves us. He's given us these gifts, and we're sharing these gifts with you because he loves you too. And when people realize that unconditional love and they see it, it changes their whole perspective about religion. It's kind of like if you want to really bring Christ's message to a beggar that sits under a bridge somewhere. I'll give you two options. One is you can go there with a Bible, you stop the car in the rain, and you give him the Bible and say, God bless you, my brother. You get in the car and drive off and say, oh, God, thank you, I did the right thing. I shared your love. The other option is you can stop the car, give him a sandwich, and give him an umbrella. And you keep doing that for 2-3 weeks. One day he's going to stop you and say, why are you doing this? And it's at that moment that God opens the door for you to share the essence of who God is. God is love. And so that's what we do as a company. We show our employees what God looks like if He was running our company, to care for them in a way that honors God. And that's when we open the door for them to understand that God loves them and who God is. I can go on for hours about all the different programs. We have scholarships, marriage retreats for our employees. We have a chapel that we built in the center of our company. I'll show that to you in a minute. We have a chaplain that helps our employees. We have prayer groups. We start our meetings in prayer. We have a whole bunch of different things that I don't have time to share all with you, but suffice to know that that's what we do. But at the end of the day, we have a concept at our company called EROI. Many of you know what ROI is. When you invest in a company, you say, what is the ROI? The return on investment, right? Before you give someone money, you want to know what's the return. This here is eternal return on investment. And the question is, as a company, we all measure, as CEOs, we are trained by university to measure ROI. But no one ever says the true purpose of a business is to create eternal value. So what metrics do you have in your company to measure eternal return? And how do you create eternal value in your company? Because at the end of the day, I don't believe God is going to ask me, when I get up there, how much money did you make, Peter? He's going to ask me, what did you do with that money to point people towards me? That's all that I'm going to be asked. So the question then is, how do we create eternal value? By leading people to God. I did a talk one time in Cancun, and at the end of the event, just like this, a guy came up to me, and he hugged me. He said, Peter, thank you. I said, for what? He says, you know, for the first time, I understand my job description as a CEO. He had 5 huge hotels in Cancun that he was the CEO and owner of. He says, you know what I realized for the first time? My job, my only job that God will ask me is, how did you bring your employees to heaven? How did you do that? Did you do that? And you know, that's the realization for us to realize that our companies are a platform for ministry to help people to see God. So here are some of the events that we have. We have all kinds of family events where we do things with our families of our employees. We do charity. We go out as a company to help organizations out there. But one of them that I want to share with you for a minute is in Nicaragua. We started there's a small barrio in Managua, about 250 families. And what we do now, every 2 months, we send 15 people of our employees to Managua to go and help this barrio. And we do 2 things. We help the children. We drilled a well for water. We built a small church. We built a feeding station for the children. We've built schools, all in a small little village, and it's called Mount Zion. And one of the things I want to show you is a video of our employees who went to this barrio, a group of them, some of them from all different nationalities and cultures. We went there, and it was just beautiful to see how the employees raised money in these little yellow bags. You'll see these yellow bags, and in that yellow bag is enough school supplies for children to go to school. Because in Nicaragua, unless you have school supplies, you cannot go to school. And so, yeah, okay, I hear you. Am I done? Okay. Okay, thank you. I got another 10 minutes. So I want to show you this video of employees who understand the purpose of our business. They understand to give brings meaning to their lives. And that by working at POLYDECK, we're able to do some amazing things. And I want to share this video with you in Nicaragua with our employees. These people you're going to see now are our employees going to Nicaragua to care for that community.
Today is a special day.
El Ministerio Niños Escogidos
Chosen Children Ministries
ha tenido el sueño
has been having the dream
de enviar los niños que no estaban yendo a clases, enviarlos a clases.
to send these kids that has not been able to go to school to go to school.
Hay hermanos en Estados Unidos,
There's brothers and sisters in the United
hay
States.
amigos en los Estados Unidos
Their friends in the United States
que nos han ayudado
that has helped us
para hacer este sueño realidad.
to do this dream real.
Well, here we are, living in the moment. And here we are, dreaming in the open. Now look around, isn't this a new day? Make a move, doing things a new way. A new way. 'Cause this is our world, and this is our time. These are our plans, we're gonna let them shine. This is our place in the human race, and we won't stop dreaming. No, we won't stop dreaming.
You know, every time I watch that video, it goes in my heart. Because that's what God has called us as CEOs and business leaders, to reach out to love people across the world. Do you know how many of our employees that have gone on these journeys to Nicaragua that have never gone to church, to go out there and serve? They come back, their hearts are on fire, and they say, help me find Jesus. That's what living our Christian faith is about, is stepping out and bringing people to the understanding that God is love. And as a CEO, I wish I could talk to you for an hour about all the moments in which our employees have come to the realization and to see God in their own lives. One of the things that is very important is, if you think of employees in our company, 70% of them never go to church. How does God touch them? How? There's statistics that say that 80% of people who come to know Jesus after the age of 18 come to know Him through a moment of crisis. Because when we're as human beings, once we're 18, our minds are set. How does God touch us to say, hey, I'm here? How does He do that? He must break us. And the beautiful thing in our company is not only mine, but in yours. In our company, I jokingly say there's 3 types of employees. Those that are about to go into a crisis, those who are in a crisis, and those who are just coming out of a crisis. So God creates crisis in everybody's lives. But what do we do with those moments of crisis? What do we do? Do we allow God to use those moments to change lives? And so what we've done at our company is we have a chaplain who is there as a spiritual director to be with our employees in those moments of crisis. This is what he does. He shares every day. He spends time with every employee, building relationship, building a confidential relationship. Just as our priests share those moments with us where we can go and share intimate personal information, we have a chaplain at our company. He walks around amongst all our employees, says, "Hey, good morning, Jorge, how are you? Blah, 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 my family, did you enjoy the soccer this weekend? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, ciao." But you know, one day, Jorge's got a problem, and his child is sick, is dying, and he's got tears running down his cheek. And the chaplain says, "Hey, what's up, man?" And at that point, the relationship is there, and God can work. And so in the time that we've had our chaplain and our environment, we've had, this is all the things that he does. Hospital visits. He goes to the hospital with our employees. He tries to care for them when they're struggling with parents that are dying, with all sorts of things. In jail. Some of our employees wind up in jail. He goes to visit them in jail. He helps them. We have a fund. If employees have really got a problem with financially, he gives them the ability to apply for funds at our company. What does all that mean? There's a number down there in green. You'll see there, 76. That's the number of employees that have come to know Jesus Christ as a result of our chaplain. 76 out of 300. That's better than a lot of churches. Because if you think that the priest, he can only touch people who come to his church. What about us? What about the business leaders? How do we be disciples? We have to show them what God looks like in our company. And so 76 of our employees now go to church and have a personal relationship with Christ because of our company. So it's an amazing, that is how to live out our true apostolate of loving employees. I want to share just a short video with you.
The corporate chaplain system is something great. I'd never heard of it before I came to POLYDECK, and we started it up since I've come to work here. Jeff Brown he's unbelievable as our corporate chaplain. What astounded me that was in a couple weeks of his coming here, he could name anybody by name in the whole plant. He just became part of us. And a personal point, my sister was sick and on machines, and we were going to unplug the machines. My pastor was out of town at the time, out of state actually. And Jim Crandall called Jeff, and he was at the hospital about before I was, and he was with us, and he was praying with us, my family and I, as my sister passed away. So I'm really up on the corporate chaplains.
So you can see there, this big, strong guy, how God touched his heart through our chaplain. And it's amazing how these different programs work. But one thing I want to share with all of you is the word respect. I was very afraid before I started this journey of my faith in a company. How would employees say, "You know what, Peter? You cannot bring faith in a company. That's not okay. This is not a church, this is a company." Mother Teresa helped me. And she helped me to understand the simple verse here that I want to share with you. She says, "There is only one God, and He is a God to all. Therefore, it is important that everyone is seen as equal before God. I've always said that we should help the Hindu become a better Hindu, a Muslim, a better Muslim, and a Catholic, a better Catholic. We believe that our work should be our example to the people." And that's really what we've adopted in our company. We have many different faiths in our company. But you know what? We respect them. We respect everybody for who and what they are. But they in turn have to respect us for who and what we are. And we live in an environment of mutual respect and understanding and unconditional love. I'll just share with you briefly. We have our whole second shift is people who are Buddhist. So how do you deal with that? And you know, when we start our meetings in prayer, we say, we invite you to pray. And our Buddhist brothers that are with us, they all take their hat off and they pray with us. And you say, well, how does that happen? is because they understand that the love we have for them is unconditional. And as Mother Teresa says, let our love be our example. And that's my suggestion for any of you who are afraid to go down that road. Do it with love and do it with respect. I have an office in my building. It's called my boss's office, and it's our chapel. And when CEOs of other companies or vendors or people that supply us come to see me, I say, I'd like, before we make any big decision, I'd like to go to my boss's office. And they're like, your boss? Who's that? I said, come, let's go. And I take him into this office. And when they walk in, it's like, wow. And I don't really care what their faith is. I want to share them what mine is. And my boss's office is where we as a company, as leaders of our organization, we go to find direction. Kind of like what Synchro was saying yesterday. This is where we pray. This is where we find direction for our company. And it's an office in the center of our business that says who we are. But that doesn't mean we disrespect any other faith. We've asked our Muslim and our Buddhist employees if they would like a chapel for them. So it's completely non-discriminatory in how we do it. So the question then for most people is, what happens if you go down this path of loving employees unconditionally, of doing all these things? That's a lot of money. I was talking to someone yesterday. He said, you know what? I went to my board of directors and I said, you know, we're going to spend this amount of money on employees. He's like, how much money do we get back from all that? Zero. So why are we doing it? Let me show you that the Bible is a manager's manual on running a business. We just don't realize it. But God made it very simple. He reduced it to those two things: love me with all your heart and love my people. And when you love your people, they will love you in return. And let me show you what happened in our business, how our employees loved us back. The first thing was, when I started my journey as the old boss, I used to be a very mean person. I would really use bad language. I would push people to do what I wanted them to do, to make more profits. But when I changed in 2005, what happened? When I came back and started loving employees and treating them with all these caring, kind programs, look at what happened to the turnover of people. Turnover means out of every 100 people, how many people would leave within 1 year? And this is the percentage. 22% of people every year said, you know what, Peter? See ya, I'm gone. Because this is a terrible place to work. What happened with all these programs that we put in place? And you can see, currently, it's down to 3% turnover. So from 20-odd% down to 3%. Do you know how much money you save with that? All the caring programs we have are funded through this number alone. But then there's other numbers that I want to share with you. There's a concept that I call discretionary effort. If I come to work and you tell me to do a certain job that I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll just do it because you pay me. Employees bring about 60 to 70% of their effort in return for pay. What happens to that other 30%? When you give a man purpose, when you give him an understanding that his work is there to help the people in Nicaragua to go to school, to help people build roofs, to help people with drug addictions, I suddenly start understanding that my work has purpose beyond making Peter rich. And when people understand that, what happens? What happens to their effort? I want to show you what's happened at our company. This is an index we call the productivity index. This says how much revenue do we create per person. So you take the revenue divided by the number of people. Very simple. It's not perfect, but it shows you what happens. And you can see from roughly $185,000 per person to $210,000 now per person. So people come to work now understanding that there's meaning to their lives. There's purpose. And so to the average CEO, if he understands how this works, he will want to do this for selfish reasons. How do I do that? Because at the end of the day, a lot of people on a scale of 1 to 10 are maybe a 6 or a 7 in terms of spirituality, and they want to ask, if I go down this road of caring for people in a way that honors God, what happens to my business? And this is what happens to the business. And this is not just our company. I'm going to share with you, we've coached 60 companies to do this in a different way in different countries, and a lot of them show the same results. Look what happened to revenue. Revenues went through the roof. I believe because God was blessing us to show people in the secular world that you can run a business using Christian principles and caring for people and make money at the same time. And so these are the key performance indicators of our company. One of the things that we do now is we measure return on investment. These are key performance indicators that we use every day to measure our business. And you can see they are customer service, they are safety, on-time delivery, profitability, quality, blah, blah, blah. But I don't believe God's going to measure us by that. He's going to say to us, what is the eternal return on investment? And so we have a whole lot of metrics there. How do we care for people? How do we create eternal value in our business? And that's something I'd ask you. As you're sitting there, if you own a business or if you know someone that does, ask yourself, what metrics do I have that measure what's important to God? And if you don't have any, think of some. And there are lots of different ways you can measure that. And so it's eternal return on investment is really creating a caring company culture. That's how we do it. We care for people in a way that honors Him. And so that's essentially what we did. One of the things that was near and dear to my heart as I went down this journey as a company, I said to myself, you know, God has blessed me in an unbelievable way with a company that is flourishing, where we're creating eternal value, and we're creating profits. How can I share this with the world? And so what we did is I went out talking to many, many CEOs about what was happening in our companies, and many of them were inspired and said, you know what, Peter, I want to do that. But the question was then, how could I help them? How could I help them go actually do this? And so we started this organization here called His Way at Work, which is basically to inspire and help business leaders to improve their workplace by having God at the center and caring for people as He did to create eternal value. And so what we did was create this circle of developing core values, as I shared with you, to put them on the back of the business card, what those values are, creating a mission statement, purpose statement, and then living it out. How do you live it out? It's very difficult to live it out. And so over the time, we've helped roughly 80 organizations who represent roughly 60,000 employees in 5 different countries. How to implement these principles in a company. And each country is different. Each culture is different. The way you implement these principles is different. There's very different methodologies to do it. But what we're going to share with you later on, Kelly and Mayuka are going to come up later on and share with you a little bit about the His Way at Work principles. And if any of you are interested, we're going to talk about that a little later. So thank you very much for your time and for listening to me. Thank you.